Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Tip of the Ice-Burgh podcast, your home for Pittsburgh Penguins news and analysis. You can find us on YouTube at Tip of the Ice-Burgh, or you can catch us anywhere you get your podcast from. I'm your host, Nick Belsky, joined as always by Nick Horwat, and we got a great show for you guys today. We'll talk about two lineup changes that are long, and when I say long, I mean long overdue for the Pittsburgh Penguins, and then we'll have a great discussion about, well, is Tristan Jarry back? We'll discuss what back could mean for Tristan Jarry and whether or not he is indeed reached that level to where we can say he is back. And then we'll close things out by breaking down all angles of the Four Nations face-off rosters that were unveiled yesterday for all four teams: Canada, United States, Sweden. I almost said Switzerland, which, sorry, Nico Hischier, not quite there yet. Sweden and Finland, but we got a lot of show. Let's get it started here on the Tip of the Ice-Burgh. Before we get into anything, I do want to send out a quick congratulations to former Penguins Kevin Stevens and Matt Cullen, who were officially inducted into the United States Hockey Hall of Fame in Pittsburgh, no less, yesterday. Obviously, they were both at Tuesday's game. They were both recognized prior to the game, as well as the other inductees to this year's class of the 2024 United States Hockey Hall of Fame. And even Kevin Stevens had a great moment during the game in the third period when he was on the broadcast. And, well, he saw the best power forward goal the Penguins have scored all season long. It just so happened to not be a power forward. It was, in fact, Marcus Pettersson.
It is what it is. It's as long as a goal happens with one of those special guests on the mic, that's when it gets entertaining. That's when it's fun. And congratulations to those two. A couple of well-deserved honors, especially for Kevin Stevens, who, grinded and worked for everything he had. And, I mean, he's one of those interesting players where, man, that guy put up a ton of points playing with Mario Lemieux. Mm-hmm. It's not that he didn't do much anywhere else, but, man, he made a career off of that.
Yeah, he certainly did. And the thing that I'll say I loved the most about Tuesday, especially whenever they scored that goal, is you heard that guttural laugh that only Kevin Stevens has. That it's almost like a cartoonish Frosty the Snowman villain type laugh from Kevin Stevens. So it was hilarious to hear that over the airwaves, and obviously see him in there with Phil Bourque, of all people, who was the color commentator on Tuesday. So congratulations to Cully. Congratulations to Artie on being officially inducted to the United States Hockey Hall of Fame. But we got to move over to one thing, which I understand. The Penguins have won 4 in a row. We don't want to talk about the negatives, but there are two lineup changes that I think are past overdue. And even with the team winning, and I understand a lot of the times head coaches in the National Hockey League, when you're on a winning streak, they say, we're not going to touch the lineup because it's been working. Well, I think even with the 4-game win streak, there are two moves that you can make, and it'll make your team better, even if you're doing it and messing with the mojo of a long winning streak. Now, that being said, let me ask you this, Horwat. What is Mike Sullivan's biggest fault?
Oh, man. Depends on who you ask. A lot of people will say he's not playing his youngsters. He puts too much faith into his veterans. He is stubborn when it comes to lineup changes.
Yep.
There's the need to play the big expensive guys, although that one's kind of faded a bit this year, which is nice.
But to you, what is his biggest one? Because you just listed off 5. I mean, this wasn't meant to be a Barry Sullivan type of segment, but what to you is his biggest fault? Because I'll tell you mine. It's
probably the leaning on the veterans too much. Which goes hand in hand with not playing the youngsters enough. But, when there aren't any youngsters in the lineup, I'm going to fall to the leaning too much on the veterans, especially whenever they are not performing at their expected level.
Yeah, I'll make it a little bit more specific, and not just veterans. He has an over loyalty to certain players, and it's for reasons unbeknownst to everybody but him. Jeff Carter in 2022, when he was having that horrible season, would not get taken out of the lineup, would not get moved from third line center for the most part that season. And yet he continued to just fail time and time again. Now he bounced back the following season, but that's not the point. The point is, in 2022, Sullivan continued to just hammer home that, hey, he's our third line center, whether he sucks or not. Last year, it was Jansen Harkins. Don't need to say more about that one. But it's rearing its ugly head again, and I think there's two instances that it needs to stop. First and foremost, the most cut and dry of these two, Matt Nieto needs to be taken out of this lineup. I mean, he is just not an NHLer right now. He's weighing down an already slow line with Noel Acciari and Kevin Hayes. And when I look at that line, I say, okay, you could probably do without two of the three players on that line. But I think if you introduce a Cody Glass, who is now healthy again, for Matt Nieto, it makes that line work so much better. Obviously, they want Noel Acciari out there as a penalty killer, as a shot blocker, as a physical presence. Kevin Hayes has been good in a lot of the games that he's played this season. I understand he doesn't have the foot speed that he once had, even though he was never really a speedster. You can't be with that frame. But in certain games and in certain situations, I think Kevin Hayes has been an attribute and an asset to this team in a positive way. But Matt Nieto, since coming back, just has not looked good. And I understand. It's a great story. I understand he's coming off of 2 knee surgeries, but he just doesn't look like an NHLer right now, Horwat. And part of that was Tuesday. Everybody in the arena was up in arms because it looked like he got tripped, but realistically, he just tripped over his own feet and went flying through the air. He's just not an NHL player right now, and I think that it's past time for him to get taken out of the lineup, with Cody Glass getting taken off of injured reserve before last night, or Tuesday night's game, I should say. I think it's time that Glass gets that opportunity if he's indeed ready to go and Nieto gets taken out.
Yeah, if he's ready to go, I would assume that's the move that gets made. This is something we discussed last episode. Just the way to form the roster at this point should be Matt Nieto comes out for whoever you have coming back. And then it's going to be interesting to see if that is what happens, but that should be the likely move. Because at this point, that whole discussion that we had on Tuesday, we never brought up Jesse Puljujarvi's name.
Yeah.
And he's had I can't really remember what he's done recently aside from being healthy scratched, but leading up to that, he seemed to be having a pretty decent season. And now this lineup is, chock full of NHL players, NHL talent, no doubt. Matt Nieto is just at the point of he needs to be the first to be dropped out for a guy like Cody Glass, who just unfortunately hasn't had the opportunities yet. And I think that is a big reason why he will get in over Matt Nieto or over somebody. Just depends on who it is that Mike Sullivan decides to strip from this lineup. Because, like I said, you look at this roster now, and suddenly this forward core is. I don't want to say
playing well at the moment. I'll say that.
It's one of those weird situations where you look at it and you can say that this team doesn't look phenomenal. It doesn't look phenomenal on paper, but there's something at least clicking a little bit here.
Yeah,
right?
They're winning hockey games, which is more than could be said about them throughout the majority of the first 2 months of the season. But you mentioned Puljujarvi there, and that's a great example as well. Even though he wasn't lighting the world on fire, he was part of that pop line that we talked about for a week that was kind of like a flash from the pan, and then O'Connor got moved out of center. Sam Poulin got placed on waivers and cleared, and then Puljujarvi got taken out of the lineup in its entirety. But I think specifically Cody Glass, a guy who early in this season took advantage of the fact that the Penguins had a lot of injuries to different spots than the lineup, and he just continued to plug and play, whether that be at center on the fourth line, third line right wing. I believe he even got an opportunity for a couple of shifts in that top 6 as well. But he's a guy that has plugged and played in different situations, power play 2, penalty kill unit. I think that he's somebody that could overtake Matt Nieto fairly easily once he is healthy, especially as far as level of play. Because again, it's just evident that Matt Nieto right now is not a good NHL hockey player. And part of that might be you're still trying to come back from a year off, surgeries on your knees. Like, that's not an easy thing to come back from. But I mean, he wasn't great for the Penguins before he went down with injury. And I'm not sure how long you're going to let this ride out when you do have a guy in Cody Glass who you want answers about heading into the future.
Yeah. And, nothing against Matt Nieto. Just when he was out for most of last season, you didn't notice. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, hey, this lineup is missing something crucial because they were able to fill it with whoever was last year. Terry Puustinen or Sam Poulin for his handful of games, or
Jonathan
Gruden, yeah, or Puljujarvi whenever he also returned.
What are we talking about? They replaced it with Jansen Harkins.
That too. It's
entire time.
I mean, okay, so maybe you noticed it in that case, but for the most part, especially whenever they were winning down the stretch, you didn't notice that Matt Nieto wasn't in the lineup. It's not like, and he's not the otherworldly talent like Patrick Laine, where he can go off for a year for injuries and personal reasons and then come back and immediately score a huge goal.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a different player. And when you have a guy like Cody Glass, who is, coming back himself and deserves a few more opportunities because he really hasn't had them yet, by all means, it's Matt Nieto's turn to ride the pine for a couple of games. And again, maybe you won't even notice he's gone, because we didn't all of last year.
Yeah, so that is the one roster move, the one lineup change that I think Mike Sullivan has to make. And again, that's the obvious one. The next one's a little bit harder, because it's pretty obvious that this player needs to be taken out of the situation that he's currently in. The biggest question is, who replaces him when you indeed do that? And let's start with the obvious part. Matt Grzelcyk needs to be nowhere near a top 4 defensive spot on an NHL team. And what we saw last year, he was a healthy scratch for the Boston Bruins. And yet the Penguins took a chance on him to give him 20 minutes a night and play alongside Chris Letang this season. That was a gamble, and the gamble hasn't paid off. Him and Letang are a train wreck of a combo. We saw that at its worst on Tuesday. Several turnovers in the defensive zone, a lot of them unforced errors, and multiple of them led directly to goals on the Pittsburgh Penguins whenever they blew that 4-1 lead to the Florida Panthers. So Grzelcyk needs to be taken out of the top 4, definitely, maybe even out of the lineup. But then the question becomes, who do you put in for them? There's not many great options, but I think the way that he's been playing, again, it is a grit your teeth and hope. But Grzelcyk has been so bad, you need to try somebody else out there. I say you put Ryan Shea on his natural side again on the left. Give him a chance with Chris Letang. And again, it's not great, but anything's better than Grzelcyk right now. At least you would hope anything's better than Grzelcyk. I think you sit Grzelcyk for a handful of games. I think you bring Jack St. Ivany back up, plug him in on the right side next to Owen Pickering, and you hope that it works. You could also move Pickering up to the top, but again, we saw it with P.O. Joseph. Don't push these guys too quickly on the defensive side of the ice. I think the easy thing is Matt Grzelcyk needs to be taken out, at least for a handful of games. Definitely needs to be taken out of the top 4. Who you put back in, I'm saying Ryan Shea. It's not going to be a great improvement, but I think right now, the level that it's going with Grzelcyk, you cannot continue to just bang your head against a wall again and again and again with the Grzelcyk-Letang pairing and expect anything to get better.
No kidding. And when it comes to who you put in that position, I mean, you think of, well, there's Ryan Graves who's sitting in the press box. Yeah, look at every tweet Josh Yohe has had in the last few days.
Yeah.
The record of the Penguins record without him in the lineup it's insane. And I think I saw someone follow it up with, even the shifts are better with that. Like the minute shifts during games are better without him on the ice.
Yeah.
So he cannot be the option. So then you start looking into, you're right. Is it Owen Pickering's time to get bumped to the first line? Is it Ryan Shea's turn? I mean, you're right. You did see it with P.O. Joseph before. I mean, I was thinking not too long ago with Owen Pickering, yeah, he's playing well right now. He's got his first NHL goal. Is he sustainable at the NHL level right now? Doubtful, just because he's so young and because he is still learning so much about professional hockey. And he's 20? I forget. He's young. So it's not like he's
not legally old enough to drink yet, I don't think.
Yeah. And the issue then becomes, though, is who do the Penguins have behind them? It's not much. So when it comes down to it, maybe it is just, I don't want to say shuffling deck chairs, but throwing people in spots and hoping they work is essentially what's going on here. Because I mean, Sebastian Aho was not good in his attempts during the preseason. Jack St. Ivany is the one you want to give the recall to. And on the left side, who's left? Philip Krull? I mean, again, now we're just grasping at straws because Matt Grzelcyk and Ryan Graves have been that poor.
Yeah, and it's funny when you mentioned Sebastian Aho, who I completely forgot the Penguins brought in this offseason. He and Matt Grzelcyk were in a similar situation last year with their previous teams. Couldn't get on the ice. Couldn't make a lineup. Couldn't get opportunities. Yet one was brought in, clearly didn't succeed in the preseason, and was sent down. The other was brought in, did not succeed in the preseason, and has not succeeded with the Penguins in the regular season, and yet he continues to get 20 minutes a night. Now, part of that is the fact that the Penguins just don't have a lot of options on the left side right now. We understand that. But man, something needs to give here with Matt Grzelcyk, because the Penguins, every time they throw out that Grzelcyk-Letang pairing, and I understand, and you mentioned it to me, I don't remember if it was on air or off air on Tuesday, Grzelcyk has more assists than Chris Letang this year. Good for him. He is not good at his actual position, and the Penguins just have too many players that are in that role. And you know they're not taking Letang out. You know they're not taking Erik Karlsson out. Matt Grzelcyk, if he's not good at playing defense, should be taken out of the position that he's in. Should not be playing 18, 19, 20 minutes a night. Again, not great options behind him. I went with Ryan Shea because I want to protect Owen Pickering a little bit longer. You could go with Owen Pickering, and I think it would pan out better than Matt Grzelcyk has, or you could bring in Ryan Graves, and I think that, again, the bar is very low for him to perform better than Matt Grzelcyk has in that position.
Yeah, it's not a high bar to cross, and straight up, the Penguins just feel like they're out of options.
Yeah.
When it comes to those replacements, because, like I said, look at every tweet Josh Yohe's had about Ryan Graves recently. This whole discussion we're having about Matt Grzelcyk, and then Sebastian Aho not playing well, Philip Krull not really getting a chance, and likely not getting one, period. I mean, I don't think Isaac Beliveau is even on a contract that would warrant him coming to the NHL, so there's that option out the door. The Penguins are
an NHL contract.
Yeah, it always gets confusing to me whenever I think he's played in Wheeling this year too. It's rare you see guys play in all three leagues in a year, essentially. True. Is what I'm thinking of in my head.
He is low on the pecking order.
Yeah.
Call-ups, yes.
But when it comes to the left shots, especially, I mean, considering the Penguins, it's all prospects and a bunch of, oh boy, let's see if it works. And like I said, Owen Pickering's been working out. It just doesn't feel like he's sustainable at the NHL level. For now, you ride the hot hand as much as you can and keep him in for now, absolutely. But don't be afraid to send him back to the A whenever things start to fall apart. And fall apart's a bad phrase to use, but you get what I'm saying. When the eventual decline does happen because it's his first stint, don't be afraid to rip the Band-Aid off, send him back. He'll continue to stew at the AHL level and continue to get better and return at some point, maybe this year, maybe next, and be much improved.
Yeah. Owen Pickering, and again, we don't need to stick on this, but Owen Pickering is a lot more of a complete and finished product than I expected him to be this year, and I think that's a win for the Penguins. Now, whether or not that is a finished product, meaning he should never go back to the A, I think that is a conversation that right now, considering who you have on the left side, no, you don't send him back because he's probably one of your top three options on the left side. There might come a day where he does hit that rookie wall because he's playing the highest level of competition that he's ever played for the longest amount of time that he's ever played it against. Eventually, you might hit a lull. It happens to even veterans in this league. We've seen Rickard Rakell hit that this year. We've seen, Evgeny Malkin hit those lulls this year. It's bound to happen. But I've really liked what I've seen from Owen Pickering. So maybe you do give him that short opportunity. But again, I'm tentative because of what I saw in the recent history with P.O. Joseph, where it went, sharp incline and then sharp decline at the same exact time. So that is why I'm a little wary of putting him in that position. But I think at the end of the day, these are two lineup moves that need to be made. I understand you don't want to change much when you've won 4 games in a row, but let's not act like they handled that one on Tuesday and they were in control of that one on Tuesday. They miraculously won that one. I think the deserve to win a meter, which is never a 100% indication of how the game went. But if you watch that game on Tuesday, it was like 86% deserve to win a meter in favor of the Florida Panthers. That tracks. If you watch the game, that is 100% accurate. If you watch the game, the Florida Panthers deserved to win that game. And it was miraculous that the Penguins, 1, got out to a 4-1 lead, and 2, were able to actually win that one in overtime. I mean, the fact that it went to overtime helped the Penguins, because if there was another 5 minutes left on that clock, I think Florida would have scored and won the game in regulation because of the way that the game was trending. But I digress. The Pens have won. I think they do need to make these changes. I don't think the Nieto one might happen. I don't think the Matt Grzelcyk one is happening anytime soon, and that is unfortunate for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Let's talk a little bit about their goaltending situation, because defense-wise, yes, it has been a train wreck, especially that top pairing, but goaltending-wise, it has been much better. It's been a lot of negative for Jarry throughout the season, but you look at the last 3 games, and all of a sudden, he has won 3 games in a row. 3 goals allowed per game, 911 save percentage. That's not bad for a guy that has been booed during most of the home games since coming back from the AHL stint.
Not bad at all. It's you have, I don't know how much you want to cap off your excitement about it, but so far he's helping the team win games, and that is what is most important here.
Yeah.
He's found a little rhythm. I mean, it took some time even after coming back, and I don't want to say some boos felt warranted, but at this point, you can't keep again. That's a whole nother can of worms to discuss. The whole what can and can't a fan do at a game?
Yeah.
They're entitled to their opinion, and at first maybe it was one thing, but now he's gotten you 4 straight wins. He's been a big part of collecting those wins, again, despite the fact the Penguins are still, I believe, at the bottom of the Metro. Who cares? They are finding a little bit of success. They are growing something. We're going to temper the expectations a bit still, but is at least something to hang your hat on for the time being and see possibly if there's a seed planted here for something to grow down the line.
Oh, Horwat, give them some credit. The Penguins are at 6th in the Metro now. They jumped the Islanders and the Blue Jackets with their 4th straight win, and they're 1 point out of a playoff spot right now.
The East is nuts. I get it's early in the season.
The East is crazy. The fact that it is December 5th, we're talking about a team that for 2 months played like the worst hockey team in the league and the worst they've been in 20 years, and yet 4-game win streak, you're 1 point out of a playoff spot. The NHL is, they like variety. They like, what's the word I'm looking for?
Parity?
Here? Parity, exactly. This is a next level of parity right now.
I get that it's the early stages of the season. The Penguins also played 27 games. Oh my goodness.
Yes. Yeah, they've also played more games than everybody but New Jersey. That's going to continue to be the case.
But I get it's the early stages of the season, and there's still, a lot of teams are still within that 1 to 2 point range. But at the same time, it feels like year after year, at least by December, there's a bit more separation. I mean, even the Canadians are only 3 wins away from, they're in a whole playoff spot now. It's a crazy, crazy situation for the league in general, because even the West kind of is close. Yeah, it's pretty close still.
Yeah.
It's the early stages, but at the same time, it's getting late quickly for a lot of teams, and it got late quickly for the Penguins. But 4-game winning streak still below 500.
Little bit of life.
A little bit of life. Still below 500, but a little bit of life being shown there. And I mean, 4-game winning streak. Is that the hottest streak in the league right now? Looks like it. Nope. The Los Angeles Kings have also won 4 in a row.
Yeah.
Oh, and the Minnesota Wild, who are suddenly the top team in the NHL. Yep.
Wagon. Absolute wagon. And Jake Middleton is a beauty. Like that post-game interview was everything hockey fans want hockey players to be, wrapped into one guy. I mean, missing his teeth, has the stash, and just an absolute unit is Jake Middleton. But to get back to the crux of the issue that we're talking about here, you talked about it. You said, I don't know what all the way back would be for Tristan Jarry, but would you consider him all the way back to where his level is most often whenever he's at his best, which is some nights he can be really, really good. Some nights he's not going to be really, really good, but he's a far cry from unplayable, which is what he was early in this year. And even right after he came back, there were a couple of games where you looked at it and you said, man, I don't know if anything's changed.
Yeah, I'm still going to temper the expectations a bit. 3 straight wins for him isn't bad. But all the way back, excuse me, at least for Tristan Jarry he had a league leading 6 shutouts last year. I'm not saying that, and last year wasn't even all that great. For Tristan Jarry, all the way back would be playing at his all-star level. Yeah. Now, that's a high bar to get to and an unlikely bar to get to.
Consistently, yes.
Yeah, but that would be the obvious choice of the obvious all the way back answer. Mm-hmm. Where you can expect Jarry to get to, not sure at all. I mean, I would think last year is a man, you look at the numbers. The numbers last year still weird. He had a 903 and 6 shutouts, like I said, but was 19 and 25, 19, 25 and 5.
Yeah.
I mean, it's tough. I'd say if he can, how about the year before that? Again, don't look at the 13 losses part of it. Whenever he had 24 wins, try and get about to that. Get on that sort of pace. 24 wins. Yeah. He only played 47 games. Obviously, injuries piled up, but try and get to something like that. And I think that is where you'll see Tristan Jarry at the most. Because, again, you want to temper the expectations. All the way back would be all-star level stuff, but that just doesn't seem likely, especially at this point.
Here is the warning that I will issue with stuff like that. And I understand, like, that would be where he's back, is when he's around that all-star level. The numbers and judging his performance based solely on the numbers is going to be a fool's errand this year, because the numbers are never going to be great when you're playing behind this defense and this team. Jarry has been what he has needed to be in each of the last 3 games. He didn't perform well on Thanksgiving Eve against Vancouver. A lot of those goals were questionable, but it's specifically in the last 2 games. He shut down the Bruins in Boston. That gives me hope. And then he stood on his head despite absolutely horrendous defense for 62, 63 minutes, however long he played against the Panthers. He stood on his head. Yes, they gave up a 3-goal lead in the third period, but they wouldn't have had a 3-goal lead if it wasn't for his heroics in the first period and the second period. So has he reached that level over an extended period? No. But when we're talking about, is Tristan Jarry back? I think we're finally seeing glimpses of him at his best. First period and second period against Florida, he was at his best. That whole game against Boston, he was at his best. He's confident, which means, as Hunter Hodius always says, he's out at the top of his crease. He's playing aggressively, and he's playing at times like he did back in his heyday. Now, has he done it consistently? Has he put it together through 60 minutes very often? No, he hasn't done that, and that's what you're hoping for, but that's still a ways away. But I will say, the light is a lot brighter now than it was a few weeks ago. Again, a few weeks ago, the light was a black hole, but it is a lot brighter now. And I think Tristan Jarry, if we had to give him one or the other, is certainly on an upward trajectory, which is great news for the Penguins.
Absolutely. He's definitely on that upward trajectory. And, a couple weeks ago, not only was the light a black hole, the light was in the AHL.
Yeah.
He got his mind right. Hopefully he got everything sort of situated mentally and physically, and is, so far, at least, looking decent enough to be a starting goalie in the NHL again.
Yeah.
Again, we'll see how long it lasts. We'll see if it can carry, because Alex Nedeljkovic is starting to hit that unplayable phase of his career again. It's a discussion for another day.
Yeah, sure.
But for now, Tristan Jarry seems to be on the right path, getting in the right direction, and worthy of, I don't want to say sticking around, but worthy of being this team starter for the month of December.
Yeah, numbers not being great and being what a team needs to be is not what you want to talk about with a goaltender that's signed for 3 more years and $5 million. We understand. But again, once you've reached this level, you have to ignore that and hope that it just gets better this year. And just stack days, stack performances. And I think that's what Tristan Jarry is starting to do. So shout out to him. Hopefully it continues. But as we know, Horwat, goaltending in this league is hard to predict. The hardest thing to predict of everything in the National Hockey League. So we'll see if he's able to continue with that pace. Let's close out this show talking about, well, the Four Nations face-off, which, if I'm being entirely honest, for a while there, Horwat, I completely forgot that this was going to be a thing. But now you see the rosters and you think of what we're going to see. Like before in 2022, it was, oh, let's make these rosters. Wouldn't it be fun to see this? But then in the back of our minds, we knew the NHL is going to pull the plug on this. They're not going to the Olympics. They're doing it now because especially they're going to make money off of it. So we know what's going to happen. The rosters are official. We'll talk about them here, but the rosters, I mean, it looks fun. I'm getting very excited. Obviously, the Four Nations face off from February 12th to the 20th, a round robin tournament in which the 2 best teams out of the round robin will play in a championship game. So we get to see these rosters for 7 games in total. Let's go down through the rosters here that were announced yesterday on various platforms. Team USA, Man, Team USA. Looking good. Jack Hughes, Austin Matthews, Matthew Tkachuk, Jake Gensel, Jack Eichel, Matt Boldy, Kyle Connor, Dylan Larkin, and JT Miller, Brady Tkachuk, Vinny Trocheck, and Chris Kreider. That is your group of forwards. Defense-wise, you're looking at Quinn Hughes, Charlie McAvoy, Jacob Slavin, Adam Fox, Zach Werenski, and Brock Faber. I like the mix of young and old. I like the mix of physical and talented. It's good there. And then goaltending, you have Connor Hellebuck and Jake Ottinger. That is Team USA. Team Canada, Reinhart, McDavid, Marner. Okay, ridiculous. Marchand, Crosby, McKinnon. Ridiculous. Brandon Hagel, Braden Point, Mark Stone. Jesus. Seth Jarvis, Anthony Cirelli, Travis Konechny. Interesting fourth line. I'll say that. Interesting fourth line. Defense-wise, Devon Taves, Cale Makar. Those two, I believe, played together in Colorado, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. That's like kind of why they're on the team right now.
Why did I think Devon Taves got traded? I'm thinking of somebody else. Ignore me. But Devon Taves, Cale Makar, Josh Morrissey, and Alex Pietrangelo, Travis Sanheim, and Shea Theodore, Jordan Binnington, and Aiden Hill end up being the goaltenders. That was a huge conversation for a long time. Team Sweden, Philip Forsberg, Elias Pettersson, William Nylander, Jesper Bratt, Mika Zibanejad, Adrian Kempe, William Karlsson, Joel Eriksson Ek, Lucas Raymond, Gustav Nyquist, Elias Lindholm, Victor Arvidsson. Defense on that Team Sweden, Hedman, Dahlin, Ekholm, Forsling, Brodin, Erik Karlsson, who we can get into the conversation about that later, but then Jacob Markstrom and Linus Ullmark as the goaltenders. And the last one here, Team Finland, first liner, according to The Athletic, would be Mikael Granlund, which is hilarious. Alexander Barkov and Mikko Rantanen also on that line. Arturi Lehkonen, Sebastian Aho, the good one, and Patrick Laine as well on that lineup. Teuvo Teravainen, Rupe Hintz, Capo Kakko, Eetu Luo Starainen, Anton Lundell, Eric Haula. And then defense-wise for them, it's Miro Heiskanen, Nico Mikkola, Esa Lindell, Rasmus Ristolainen, Olli Mata, old friend Olli Mata making Team Finland again, and Juuso Välimäki with the goaltenders, Jussi Saros. And now, because he did it for a social clip for the NHL, I cannot say this name without singing it, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen is the backup goaltender for Team Finland. So you hear those rosters, which, again, a lot of names there, a lot to digest. 2 Penguins participating. Sidney Crosby on Team Canada, Erik Karlsson on Team Sweden. The question I will ask, Horwat, if Erik Karlsson wasn't on the predetermined first 5 or first 4, whatever they did back in July, do you think he would have made Team Sweden?
I think so, because these lineups, all 4 of them, it seemed, did a lot of work on getting the veterans in, getting the namesakes that they've had, representing their country for a long time already. So I think he would have. I know an old coach of his, or an old Swedish coach, said he wouldn't have.
He shouldn't have, is what he said. Not that he wouldn't have, that he shouldn't have.
Yeah. But I think he still would have, just because he's also coming off a pretty good tournament this past summer as captain of Team Sweden. So maybe that would have also given him the bump. It's a short tournament. You give these guys that, especially guys like Karlsson who have the pedigree to do it, give them the chance. What's the worst that can happen? It's also a 4-team tournament. It's not like you have time to sort of feel people out. No, you got to get to the top of the game right away. Yeah. And if anything, at least Karlsson might be able to get to the top of his game right away. Mm-hmm. So I think even if he wasn't part of the first, it was 6, by the way, I still think he would have made it, just because he has the pedigree. He's done it before. He's represented Sweden for a long time. Also, how deep is Sweden on defense generally? I actually don't know outside of these guys that have been named.
Yeah.
But it can't be that deep.
Yeah, I mean, he is the 3rd pairing right defenseman, according to Dom Luszczyszyn of The Athletic, which is holding on by a thread there.
Yeah.
So, but again, I think that it would have been a conversation. It certainly would have been an interesting conversation, but short form tournament, you're right. He had a really good World Championships for Sweden last summer, and it just hasn't translated back to Pittsburgh in the NHL level. But with Crosby on Team Canada, with Karlsson on Team Sweden, there's always going to be people that talk about who got snubbed. Do you think there's anybody on the Penguins that got snubbed from the 4 Nations face-off?
I get a lot of people said Rickard Rakell against Sweden. If Sweden is deep anywhere, it's in forwards. Mm-hmm. I could see that option being a thing. I want to throw a fun one at you and say Jesse Puljujarvi maybe, because he did start the season pretty well. Again, it hurts that he's not playing right now. And if it's worth anything, maybe he would be, because like I said, a lot of these teams went the veteran route, went for guys like Finland, went for Joel Armia. I think Jesse Puljujarvi could have slid right in there.
Yeah.
But again, if anything, Finland is the thinnest of these rosters. So maybe it's a tough choice. And Puljujarvi also I'm pretty sure he had a pretty good tournament just this past summer representing Finland. So
yeah,
that would be my second choice outside of Raquel. And out of that, had Jarry started the season pretty good, him for goalie, absolutely, because I have thoughts and opinions on this goalie trio for Team Canada.
Yeah, you've never been the biggest fan of Jordan Binnington, have you?
He locked in this spot in 2019, and Team Canada has not wavered.
Yeah.
And Aiden Hill locked his in a couple years ago and does not waver.
Yeah.
And there might be some politicking into Sam Otenbo. I just got sent something on that I need to look into. That being said, I have thoughts on Team Canada, but I don't know if anyone else really would have earned their way in outside of, like I said, Puljujarvi and Raquel.
Yeah, Raquel is the big one. Raquel is the big one. You look at what he's done this season, 10 goals, 6 assists, and 27 games played. He's playing at such a high level. The puck just magnetizes to his stick. And I think that you could have made the argument that he gets in over guys like Gus Nyquist or guys like Victor Arvidsson. The problem that I think Raquel ran into is his play last season put him behind the 8 ball, and he just wasn't able to make that up in time to make this roster. But I do think that he deserves serious consideration, and I wouldn't be surprised if he was given serious consideration. But again, his play last season might have put him behind the 8 ball. But I think he is firmly in this next conversation, which is if there was a B squad for these 4 nations, which Penguins would be in consideration? Obviously, Raquel, we both just mentioned as somebody who was kind of in the category of snub for the main one, so he would 100% be on the B squad. I agree with you. I think Jesse Puljujarvi would be on Team Finland's B squad, but who else on the Penguins, if there's anybody else on the Penguins, would make that B team?
Marcus Pettersson. Never I said how deep is Sweden on defense. Marcus Pettersson, it's just he's having a down year this year, so there goes that idea for this year. Marcus Pettersson for sure with Sweden. I don't see any more forwards that could make the cut. Brian Rust for Team USA.
I was going to say, Team USA, if there's a B team, Mike Sullivan's bringing in Brian Rust.
Yeah, Brian Rust for Team USA, depending on how deep it is, though, how deep the B team is, if it's more than a line, then yeah, Brian Rust gets into that conversation. And then Chris Letang, maybe, for Team Canada. Yeah, not the greatest year, but he would probably be in that conversation, especially if it was. Well, here's the issue. I saw a lineup of notable snubs from Team Canada, and it was a full new lineup that could still dominate this tournament. So maybe not Chris Letang, but possibly on the B team, especially if he was having a better season.
Yeah, I think there are tiers to this. Raquel and Puljujarvi are the top tier, as in they would definitely make the B squad. I think Marcus Pettersson's probably also in that as well. I think Brian Rust is in the probably, but depends on what other names are there and what happens in the politics. And then there's he may make it. He may be an option, and that's Chris Letang. The wildest thing to me is Chris Letang, for the longest time in his career, has been considered one of the better options when it comes to defensemen in the NHL. He was the number 1 defender for the Penguins for a decade and playing at that level for most of that decade. He has not suited up for Team Canada outside of, I don't think he's played in World Championships since World Juniors in 2007.
Yeah, I was going to say, he doesn't represent Canada all that much. I can't remember any times that he's done it. And the thing about the right side on Team Canada, too, is, like I said, that's the notable omissions team that Sportsnet Canada put together. The right side is Evan Bouchard, Brandon Montour, and Chris Tanev. It's a tough lineup to make in Canada. I mean, birthplace of hockey. It should be tough to make. But Chris Letang has never gotten the nod because they've just always had standout player after standout player, especially on the right side of defense. But I would say, depending on how deep the B squad went, I could see Letang being in the conversation. But the more I look at the notable omissions, unlikely, actually.
Yeah, the last time Chris Letang suited up for Team Canada, he was the captain for their World Junior team in the 2006-2007 year. He had 6 assists in 6 games played. So it has been a long time since Chris Letang represented his country. So, I mean, maybe they would give him that nod as the like, hey, been a while. You've been a good pro. This is a guy that some people are talking about Hall of Fame, and yet he hasn't represented his country since he was a rookie in the NHL.
Same could be said about Marc-Andre Fleury. Again, not rookie in the NHL, but he would have been a good option if Team Canada wanted to get creative and spontaneous at all. He doesn't have a regulation loss yet this year.
That's insane.
He's playing backup, yeah, but he's 5-0-1, and could have been a nice little gesture for his farewell tour. Just here's some international play. I think for Fleury, I could be wrong, but the last time I think he played international play, he won a gold medal in 2010.
Yep.
As the third string, but again,
yeah,
you don't need the guy to play that often. Maybe just give him a jersey.
How much is Sam Montembeault going to play in the 3 or 4 games that they're scheduled to play against in the 4 nations?
He's not. Well, Bennington and Hill as your first 2 is scary, but Sam Montembeault likely doesn't even play.
But again, it is a short. You can make the same argument that you made for Erik Karlsson. It is a short form tournament. If you need Marc-Andre Fleury to be good in 1 game behind Team Canada, I think he could have. So, that I didn't think about much coming into this, but now that's going to make me mad.
Yep.
That's
going to
bother me.
You're welcome. There's, like I said, there's a whole team of Canadian snubs that you could look at and go, these are all good. Oh, it could.
4 nations, 5 teams, and 2 of them are Canada.
Oh, yeah.
You could do that.
You absolutely could. It's a scary looking team. I mean, Steven Stamkos is here on the set. Although that Nashville's so weird this year.
Yeah.
The rookies, Connor Bedard's, Mackin Celebrini. I know Bedard's not a rookie, but you get what I'm saying.
The young kids. Yeah. It's kind of crazy that they didn't put Bedard on, but I think they expect him to be on Team Canada for the Olympics in 2026.
He's having a down year, too. He had 2 goals going into Thanksgiving.
Yeah. But, I mean, Team Canada. A lot of it's like, we're going to put Crosby and Bedard on the ice again together, and we're going to sell jerseys that are Crosbard or whatever the hell they do. Team Canada likes to throw that together a lot. But again, this is also the first time that we've seen Sidney Crosby play with Connor McDavid on the same team ever.
Don't take a penalty against Canada.
Yeah, don't. I mean, will Crosby be on the power play unit? The top power play unit when you got guys like McKinnon and Makar and McDavid, all the Max.
Puck mover Mitch Marner.
Yeah, all the M's. They might just go with the, all the M's on the top power. I don't know. That's
Morrissey.
Why this is fun. Josh Morrissey makes the top power play unit. I think we're going to have some issues, but no, it's a lot of fun with these lineups. It's going to be a lot of fun in February, the second week again, February 12th to the 20th. But before we go, Horwat, do you have an early favorite in this tourney? We've been talking up Canada a lot. Is that your favorite going into this?
No, because that goaltending is atrocious, especially compared to the trio that the USA is trotting out of the greatest goalie in the world right now, Connor Hellebuck, Jake Ottinger, and the third one escaped me because you didn't say it, and I forgot what it was.
Yeah, it wasn't on this lineup. They only had who's going to be in, who they
Jeremy Swayman.
Yeah.
Who's having a down year, but it's also Jeremy Swayman as your third string. I think you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
I think Austin Matthews. I think the United States might be the favorite this year for this tournament. Again, short term, this is the deepest team they've ever had. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be tough to beat Connor Hellebuck in goal. And that defense is way better than a lot of people might give it credit for, especially defensively. With Jacob Slavin, Adam Fox can't play defense. Brock Faber's up there. Mm-hmm. It's going to be and Zach Werenski's having a great year in Columbus, by the way.
Yeah.
So Team USA is going to be a tough out. It'll be USA Canada in the final, I'm sure.
Yeah, I never want to count out Team Sweden, but it's tough to look past those two monsters in the United States and Canada this year. Canada is going to be the most fun team to watch. Yeah. Bar none, the most fun team to watch. I mean, McKinnon and Crosby, McDavid and Crosby, Marner and Crosby, Marchand and Crosby. You can go down the line. It is going to be the most fun team to watch. USA has the more complete team. And I think that's what you're going to hear a lot of people say, but I'm going to echo that sentiment because I think it is plain as day. The United States is a deeper team. They have the better goaltending by a mile. And I think their defense is equal to what Team Canada is throwing out there. I think those games are going to be absolute barn burners. Definitely going to have to circle that one. And I know they have it I don't have it up right now, but I think they have the date for that Team USA, Team Canada game.
That could be fun. I will say I don't like Vincent Trocheck, Chris Kreider, and Brock Nelson on Team USA, especially when Cole Caulfield and Tage Thompson were options. But those are the only 3 downsides that I could find on this roster.
There's one Saturday night game for this entire tournament. And of course, 2. Sorry. They have 2 Saturday games, 1 Saturday night game, February 15th, USA, Canada, 8 p.m. on ABC, locked in. Absolutely locked in. So I'm excited for that. I'm excited for this entire tournament. We're both going USA. So
yeah,
I think that's the analytical mind, but obviously we're rooting for USA. Crosby can have hat tricks in every game against Finland. He can have a hat trick against Sweden. I'll be very happy, but we're going USA on this one. But,
what is it? The triple gold club he's in?
Yeah.
You know what the NHL just opened up for him?
The quadruple gold club?
The only player in the quadruple gold club.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, Canada's winning out of spite.
Yeah, ridiculous amount of winning for Sidney Crosby. I think he can let this one go. You know, they'll probably win the gold medal at the Olympics in 2026.
No doubt.
So, give them time to figure out their goaltending. Another year, somebody will sprout out of nowhere and be phenomenal. So, but nonetheless, it's going to be a fun tournament. But that's going to do it for this episode of the Tip of the Ice-Burgh. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this one. Remember, you can find us on YouTube at Tip of the Ice-Burgh. Make sure you like, share, tell all your friends, subscribe. That's great as well. Or you can catch us anywhere you get your podcast from. We'll see you guys next time.